My name is Atsushi Tanabe. I'm in my early 30s and single. I had been living at home, but after I turned 30, I was going to move due to work. It was time for me to move out, so I live alone. I live with a wheat allergy. I carry around an EpiPen for insurance, in case something happens. I cook my own food and my lunch is my own cooking too. If I didn't have my mom's recipe, I'd never be able to cook. My mother had always handled my allergies, so I appreciated it a lot once I started living alone. If I was going to die, I knew that I would eat a lot of bread and noodles. That was what I dreamt of as a kid. My mother would try her best to make things look and taste like the real thing without using any real wheat. My mother's wheat were made without having to work too much, so I didn't have any problems cooking every day. The boss at my new workplace understood allergies, so it wasn't a problem. But there was one person who was problematic. Her name was Mayuko Uti.
These cookies are 100% organic and produced by Japanese wheat. These should be fine.
She had believed that allergies were just people being weak. You can't be picky at that age. That's why you can't get married. Leave me alone, please.
Hey, I'm worried for you. Don't you understand?
She would keep messing with me after I had informed the office that I was allergic to wheat. At first, she started giving me foods that were clearly wheat, so I kept turning her down. But eventually, she started handing me snacks that were not so clear if they had wheat in it or not.
They're handmade. I took care with the ingredients.
It's not about where it's produced or how much care you took. I kept explaining it, but she wouldn't listen, so I explained it to my boss. I really can't eat a single bite of wheat. Even breathing some dusting can be enough for me to go into shock. Can you tell her? I've been warning her, but... She's very prideful. She's great at her job and a lot of people rely on her, but she's not exactly what you would call a bad person. She's just overly pushy. If only she understood allergies. I only ate things that I brought into the office to protect myself from any allergies. That included drinks. My co-workers even started calling me stoic for how much I'd only eaten my own food, but I didn't want to die. However, I had eventually collapsed, no matter how stoic I was. When I heard about a surprise conference and had to leave my desk, someone had messed with my food. I didn't know what was wrong with it. I collapsed during lunch. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed. You awake? I was so worried about you. I was apparently out for almost half the day, and my parents had shown up after they heard what happened. Why? I only eat things that I cook. Miss Ito had said something about how you fell asleep while eating your lunch. My co-worker, who had seen our regular interactions, called the ambulance after seeing me. Ito just kept saying, "Ah," not understanding the gravity of the situation. My co-worker had explained that I had collapsed after eating lunch to the emergency workers. They asked to see the lunchbox, but when my boss had checked, it was empty. It was washed clean, apparently. I was almost killed, so I called the police, but... Do you have any evidence? Proof? If you don't have anything, we can't do anything. I see. Okay. I put out a complaint about how I was almost killed, but they couldn't do anything since I had no proof. The doctors had explained everything to my parents and they came to my room. My co-worker had left after they showed up. I only cooked things the way you did. If Miss Ito did something, what was it? There was one thing that my parents could think of. I was decent at cooking, but I lived alone. I would cook a lot of things and meal prep. There was a pretty good routine in what I would cook. I remember telling some of my co-workers that I was going to make tempura this week. I was often the center of attention when it came to cooking since I was a single guy. I didn't think much of it, but if someone had predicted what I was going to cook… When I explained that to my parents wanted to speak to Ms. Ito to see what she had to say. They contacted my boss and asked for her personal number. The husband of the woman you're talking about answered. She says she wanted to talk to us directly, so I'm gonna go meet with her mom. Mom and Dad left the room. Luckily, even though I'd fallen into shock, it wasn't that bad. I was going to be able to leave in a few days. I was glad that all the tests had been done when my parents came back. She apparently is too pushy. What do you mean?
She had done the same thing to her husband's wife. She also fell into shock.
What? You're kidding! They had apparently cut off all contact with her after that. I left a few days later, but I'd stayed at my parents' place for a little bit. My father had to go for a little bit, but just as he was about to leave the apartment, there was a doorbell, and Ito and her husband were there. I'm so terribly sorry for this! He was begging for mercy as soon as I opened the door.
I didn't do anything wrong. I just wanted to help you.
Her husband was yelling at her to apologize, but she wouldn't budge.
My brother's child was sick at first from eggs, but after he grew up, he was fine after he cooked it. He told me! That's not the same allergy. Everyone is also different.
My mother had lost it against Ito. It's true that sometimes people grow out of their allergies, but that's not something that fits everyone. My mother explained that, but Ito didn't budge at all.
It's because you spoiled your son. He's never going to get married.
Her husband smacked her with all his might, and she collapsed before she finished her sentence. Every time she tried to say something, he just slapped her, and she just quietly started crying. My parents and I were just quietly watching. Mr. Ito gave my father quite a bit of money, saying it was for a settlement, and dragged Ito home. Ito wasn't back at work anymore, and she apparently resigned. I hadn't seen her for a while, but I noticed a news article. Huh, she fed snacks to kids at the park. Mayuko Ito. You're kidding! I saw Miss Ito and some kids who had allergies. She had fed them exactly what they were allergic to. I always wished I could eat things made from wheat as a kid, but I felt so bad. The kids were still unconscious. Why didn't she just stop after me? She was deemed guilty later on and was put into prison. Luckily, the kids had made a full recovery. Allergies are not just people being picky. Most people understand that, but sometimes there are people like Miss Ito. Don't be like her and force your own values down someone's throat and almost kill them.
Thanks for watching! Don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button!